So if you work with WordPress in any way, you'll know how easy it is to break WordPress. You can install an update, you can put a new theme in, you can just change something on the server and boom, your website's gone offline. You've got a white screen of death. It could be all manner of annoying things. Then you've got to go through the hassle of fault finding, trying to find out what's going on, maybe try to manually restore backups. It can just be an absolute nightmare. So today I'm going to be taking you through the pro version of WPVivid Backup. Now I've already covered the free version in its own video and I'll put a link to that in the description below. Now one thing I want to say is I'm not going to go through all the same things I've covered in that first video. If you want to find out about the basics of backing up, and if you want to find out how you link it through to things like Dropbox and things like that, check that video out first, then come back and join me in this one. Now, I do want to say though, this is a sponsored video. They have reached out to me and asked me would I create content and just show you exactly what this plugin does. Now, first of all, I do want to say this is a sponsored video. Those lovely people over at WPVivid reached out to me and asked me would I create a video just demonstrating how the pro version of this plugin works. As always, I'm going to do just that. I'm not going to give you any opinions, no reviews, so you can just take a look at what this does, and if you think it's something you'd like to invest your time, effort and money into, well, that link's in the description below. It is an affiliate link, so I do get a small percentage back if you purchase through that link, but it costs you absolutely no more money. Anyway, without any further ado, let's take a look at what the pro version of WPVivid Backup actually offers us. Now, if you haven't seen the first video on the free version of WPVivid Backup, I'd recommend taking a look at that if this is completely and utterly new to you. Because in there, I go through the basics of how you set up where you want to take your backups to, how you do basic backups and so on. This pro version is more a case of showing you some of the key differences between the free version and the pro version and why you may want to opt for the pro version for some of those extra features. So with that out of the way, I'm just going to quickly go through the remote storage setup. All I've really done is I've set things up and I'm going to back up to Dropbox. However, you do have a range of options available to you. And since I did that video, there's been a couple of extra options available. So pCloud is one of those options that's been added. So if you've got a pCloud account, you can now start to back up to there. And we've also got Wasabi. So we have some extra options on top. But like I say, I've kept this to being set up with Dropbox, so it just kind of falls in line with the first video. However, the setup process for any of these is incredibly simple and straightforward. Just follow the instructions, fill out the details, and you should be good to go. Now, if you want to take a look at the differences between the free version and the pro version, which we're going to cover in this, I'd recommend taking a look at the link in the description below that's going to go through, give you a side-by-side comparison. But let's kick this off now with the whole backup side of things, and then we'll move on to some of the other things as we go through the video. So, with the free version, you basically get the ability to back up your WordPress files and folders and a database backup, and that's pretty much all there is other than where you store your data. When you look at going into the pro version, we have a lot more options. We can do incremental backups, we can back up WordPress multi-sites, we can back up core files, theme backups, plugin backups, a whole range of different things. Now, it's beyond the scope of what I can cover in this video. I just want to give you a demonstration and take you through some of the key things that I think are vitally important when you're choosing any kind of backup tool and facility. And also at the end of the video, I'm going to show you briefly how I specifically use this in my whole process of backing up, updating sites and keeping everything in line with sites that I both have commercially and for things for myself as well. So let's take a quick look at some of the options we have and how they kind of integrate. So let's start with the backup and migration tab. You can see things are broken down into very simple, logical ways of doing things. Step one is where do you want to store your data? We've got save it to localhost, and what that realistically means is save it to your actual server location. Don't get this confused with localhost being if you were running something like XAMPP or something like that on your own local computer, that's going to store it there. It's not. This is basically the root of your particular hosting account. Second, we've got send it to remote storage. If we click on that option, that will choose whatever we've set up inside the remote storage tab, in my instance, Dropbox. Once you've done that, you can then go on and say, are you going to migrate a site or are you creating a staging site? We'll take a look at those options a little later, so we can ignore those for now. Next up, we've got step two, which is choose what you want to back up. And this is where you'll start to see some of those pro features that you don't have in the free version. You can see we've got database and files, the WordPress files. We've got WordPress files excluding the database, so you can just choose to output everything bar your database. Or you can just do just your database. So you may have no real changes to files being uploaded and things like that. You may only want to have a database backup. Then you can do just that. Or you can create a custom backup. And if we choose a custom backup, we can then go through and choose exactly what we're to include and exclude, not only from the sort of root folder level, but also we can go into subsections. So inside the WordPress core, you can see we've got to choose all of those. However, when it comes to the database, we can expand that out and choose what fields we want. So we may have certain things that share the same database as our WordPress install, but we don't want to back those up because they're not part of WordPress. Using this, you can easily choose what you want to back up and exclude anything you don't want to back up. Or obviously, you can completely exclude the entire database by unchecking it. So all the options you should want are contained inside there, including things like additional files and folders. So outside what you may have as part of WordPress, and the same goes with the database, you may want to add extra things in there. So you could be running some separate software in the same location as your WordPress and the same, a different database and so on. Well, you could just choose exactly what you want to back up from there. And again, we can just choose to enable that, and then we can choose what we want to include, and it's going to give us a simple file structure, at which point we can step through and find out what additional files and folders we may want to include. And the same kind of thing goes for the database. If you want to include additional databases, we can expand that out and add any extra databases we may have as part of our setup. So for our test, I'm going to put this back to everything, the database and the WordPress files. If we want to apply a comment to the backup, we can do that directly inside here. So we can put in any kind of comment we want if we're doing a manual backup, and you can see it'll give us an example underneath of how that would look if we added in a comment. So let's just say WPTuts. And you can see underneath now that prepends our zip file with whatever comment I've placed in there. Okay. Once we've done that, we are pretty much then good to go to create a manual backup. You can see marking this backup can only be deleted manually. So it's up to us if we want to do that. So it can't be automatically deleted from within WPVivid Pro or any other software you may be using that's managing, your backups and things. So you can set that to make sure you can only manually go in and delete that. However, I'm not going to worry about that for this example. I'm going to say backup now. That's going to go through now and tell me that the schedule status, the UTC time, all those kinds of things. And it also tells us then the backup, the status of it, the database size, file size, total size, all those kinds of things. And you see it says then start uploading process. So this has gone through the process of creating the backup on my local server. It's now sending that through to Dropbox for me into the relevant location. So my backup will be taken off my server, placed over in whatever storage facility that I've set up. So, as you can see, doing a manual backup is incredibly simple, and with the Pro version, we have a ton more options on exactly what we want to back up, and, like I say, some external things if you want to do that and create a fully customized backup should we want to. So that's our remote backup all completed. If we want to check out, make sure everything went through fine, we can jump over to the Logs tab, and inside there we can see any of the backups that we've run, the file names, the dates, the times, all those kinds of things. And if we click on the log, we can see all the information about file sizes, any errors, any problems whatsoever will all be listed inside there. So once we've done that, we can take a quick look at our storage option and see the file in there just to make sure that everything is transferred over as we'd expect it to. So if I open my Dropbox up, you can see there's my folder for my particular site. If I open that up, we'll open up a new tab, and inside there you can see there's the file backed up. Tells us exactly all the details about it. If we want to come in and find out, we can share, we can download it, we can do whatever we want, including versioning. So all set up, all configured, and as you can see, a manual backup is super simple and incredibly easy to do. Now, next down on our options of backup is the scheduling option. Now, there's two things inside scheduling. We've got the ability to just schedule this at a day and time and so on, and all those kinds of things, and where we want to send this to and so on. We've also got the ability to do an incremental backup schedule. Now, this is currently still in beta, so bear that in mind if you start to use this. So let's take a look at the scheduling side of things. You can see we can schedule this weekly, every hour, fortnightly, every 30 days. We've got a ton of different options inside there. We can also choose the day depending upon what kind of option we choose. So for example, if we choose weekly, we can choose the day. However, if we choose something like every 4 hours, that removes that. So it's context sensitive. It's quite simple and straightforward to do. So let's just say you wanted to do it every hour. You can then set it to start and what particular time within that hour. Because you may not want it to start on the hour. You may want it to start at 30 minutes past the hour or 10 minutes past the hour. Well, you can set that up inside there. You can also set up your time zone settings. So depending upon where you are in the world, you may find that your location in comparison to the server location could be different, and therefore the time zones between things could be different. So we can click on time zone settings, and you can see we can come in and just take us through into WordPress, at which point we can make sure that everything is set up, the time zones are correct, if there's any sort of daylight saving and things like that, all that is in place. So I've gone ahead, made a couple of changes now to the date format, time format, and my time zone to make sure everything is as I'd expect it to be, and hit save changes. We'll hop back over into the settings section, and we're going to refresh that, come back into our schedule, and we should see now that the time and date and everything is all set up as it should be. So I'm working in GMT, so we've got everything set up. Okay, so what I can do now, like I say, is set up the schedule that I want to work with. Again, I've got all the options then underneath for the types of backup, so you should see that this is very familiar to the normal backup options anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to say weekly on a Monday, and we'll leave the time and everything on there. We could change that to whatever we wanted to. Next up, we can choose the backup type. I'm going to leave that set to database and files for all of the WordPress files. We're going to say send this to a remote storage. We'll just make sure Dropbox is the option that's chosen, and you can see it's the one that's currently highlighted. And then what we can do is we can say create a new schedule. So we can create that, and you can see that now tells us that weekly on a Monday, there's no last backup because obviously it's a new one. The time we're going to do it, the backup type of storage we're going to use, whether it's remote or local, and then we got settings if we want to edit the schedule, or we can just basically bin that off. So you could set up very quick and easy multiple different kinds of schedules. You might want to set up just a database one every single day and a site once a week. Well, you could do that. You could stack different ones on top of each other. So again, it's really, really cool on how you can set this up. If we take a look at the incremental backup schedule options though, you can see incremental backups is currently in beta and for testing purposes only. So bear that in mind if you do think about using this on a production site. Now, if you're not sure what an incremental backup is, it's pretty simple and straightforward. It's going to take a look at the files and folders on the storage location, the most recent backup you've done, and compare that to the live server, and then any files or folders that have changed since that last update will be pushed over, and you'll have a backup of those incremental changes. Now, bear in mind that this does not work with a database backup. It's only going to work with files and folders. So if you want to have your database backed up, you'll need to do a normal database backup and schedule that in the same way as I've just shown you now. So bear that in mind. That is one limitation of what you can do with this. So knowing that, if you want to set one up, you can say disable other schedules and run the incremental backup. I'm not going to cover that in this because, like I say, it is still in beta, so it's not something that I would recommend to use on a production site. And like I say, it's there if you want to test it out and try it, but do it on a test server just so you can see how it works. Now, with all of these backups, it's worth bearing in mind whether you're using a scheduled backup, a manual backup, or an incremental backup. The limitation for the free account, the free version, is a maximum of 7 backups. So the retention is only 7 copies of it, which for most people is probably going to be more than enough. And if you want a simple solution that's just simply going to create a backup and so on, this is perfect for you with the free account. However, if you want to store more of that, or you want some of the things we've looked at in this video so far, you're going to need to have the Pro version. Now, with the Pro version, you have unlimited backups. Now, obviously, unlimited based upon what WPVivid Backup Pro can do for you, not based upon how much storage space you'd have on any of your chosen external locations. So if you had 50 gigabytes, you'd have 50 gigabytes in total of storage space. So just bear that in mind. The unlimited is still going to be limited by the amount of storage space on your chosen location for creating your backups. Now, when it comes to creating your backups and scheduling your backups, there may be a time where you'll need to reinstate it. So you can do that directly inside the WPVivid Backup Pro software. You can see we can drag and drop local files. So if we've saved something onto our local system and downloaded copies to our local setup, we can, if we want to, drag and drop those directly inside here. We can also come through to the remote storage option. So we can click on there, we can see any of the backups that we currently have in place. So you can see it says display all backups stored in account, tells us which account we can look at. So we have multiple different storage locations. We can choose where we want to look for that particular backup. And then we're going to say, well, where inside that backup location are you going to look? So if we've created subfolders, which we've done in this example, you can see toolkit underscore and the name of the site. We can look inside there. So currently you can see it's saying we've got one storage location, uncategorized, WPTuts, and we can download or restore. So we could restore it directly from here if we wanted to, or we can delete this backup. We can also say to scan the folder, so it'll go through and just check to make sure that it is looking at the most up-to-date list of files. Now, because we're using the Pro version, we also have some extra things we can do. I will take a look at this in a little bit. But what we have is underneath, you can see it says Toolkit and then the domain name. Click on there, you can see we've got both migration, rollback and incremental. So depending upon the type of backup that we want to work with, you can see we've got various different options inside there. So we click on migration, it'll look through saying scan the folder, and then it'll go and find it. So you can see we don't have any migration options, and the same goes for things like incremental and so on. We don't have any of those set up. However, we can filter through and find out only the results for any of those particular types of backups that we want to remotely restore. So bear that in mind. It's very useful to make sure that you choose the right one from there, and then you can scan to see what options are available to go through the whole restoration process. So there's the two ways in which we can do it. And again, you can see we've got display all backups stored under, and this is for your local side of things, the default location for a normal scheduled backup or a manual backup, the rollback and the incremental options. So just make sure, like I say, that you choose the right option inside there to see exactly what options are available for restoration and all those kinds of things. Hope that makes sense. Now, two key things that we have available in the Pro version is migration and staging. So if you want to take your site from one server location to another, you can use the migration option. And the staging option is if you want to go through the process of making changes to your site, you may want to try a different theme, or you may want to update plugins and things, but you don't want to take your site offline, or you may be worried that some of those updates could cause a problem, you can create a staging site. So let's just have a quick look at how easy it is to create staging sites. So if we come up to the staging site section, we open that up, you can see we've got staging sites and create staging. So if we have any we've already set up and created, they'll be listed on this tab. If we want to go through and create a new staging site, then we can choose the second tab and go through and choose what we want to push over and how we want to work with it. So you can see it says initialize as a staging. In other words, what name are you going to give this? We can name the folder and any database prefix. So you have two options. You can either use the same database as your main website, but all of the tables that are going to be used and all of the entries will all be prefixed by this particular series of letters and numbers. So it's up to you which way you would work with this, but you have the option to share the same database or install the staging site on another database. It's up to you. For this example, I would say I would use the on another database, and then you would have to go through the process of creating another database, and then you could actually go through and have everything transferred over to it. If you choose the first option, you don't need to do anything because it's going to use what's already set up. Next up, you can choose the directory in which you want to install the staging site. So you can do it to the root directory of the current site, or you can have it inside the WP content directory of the current site. It's up to you which way you would want to go about setting things up. And as you can see, it gives examples across the top to say where these different URLs are going to be, depending upon the option that you choose. Then underneath that, you've got the same kind of options you had with the backup. You can choose what you want to push over to the staging site, WordPress core, database, and so on, including additional files and folders. So again, you could be making a staging site that you want to test something that's not necessarily the WordPress side of things. It may be some monitoring software, or it could be some client management software. It could be a multitude of different things, but you can do the same thing again. You can choose to include those if you want to, and then you can test things out as part of that entire staging site. So like I say, once you've sort of set up your staging site, you can then just come over to the staging site section, and then everything will be listed inside there. So let's create our first staging site. We'll leave all the default values as they are, because this is just literally a test site anyway. So I say create staging. I'm going to let that go through the process now. It'll update us, give us a sort of measurement of how long this is going to take and where we are inside the process. And once that's finished, we've got our staging site set up, and then we can start using it and managing it once we've finished using it. So there we go. We've gone through the process. Our staging site is now completed, and it shows us that staging site with all of the relevant data we need to be able to jump over and start using that and go through the process of making any changes we want, any updates, and so on. Once you've finished that and you've made everything and you're happy with it and you're ready to push that over, all you need to do is say copy the staging site to the live site, and then the process will be completed and basically reversed. It'll push over all those changes to the live site and replace the live site with the updated version that you had inside the staging area. Then once you've completed that, all you need to do is click on delete. You can see it says, are you sure you want to delete this staging site? We're going to say okay. And that will then go through, remove those files, take any entries out of the database, and we then have just the live site there ready to start working as normal. So hopefully what you can see is creating a staging site is incredibly simple to do. You can then make your changes, push it back, and it's all one click to create, one click to remove and push your staging site and all that kind of good stuff. Now migration, I already covered the basics of that inside the first video, which is on the free version. The pro version adds some extra features, but they're not something that changes the way in which you really use this particular feature. What it's done is it's giving you the ability to use remote storage as opposed to just local storage and downloading a backup copy. So the whole process is just much easier. But you can also include custom files and folders as part of that migration process, not just WordPress. So that's the only real differences to the migration process. The rest of it is pretty much the same. And we've already kind of covered how you pick and choose what you want to back up, what you want to schedule, what you want to use inside your staging sites. So it's fundamentally the same kind of thing again. Now, I've covered the key things that I wanted to cover in this and the key differences. There are some other things that I think are definitely worth noting and can be very useful when you're working with a tool like WPVivid Backup Pro. One of the key things that I like is you can set this up to make sure that every time you update plugins or themes and so on, it automatically creates a backup prior to making those changes. So this means that if something does go wrong, you've got a backup prior to that that's already been done for you. So let me just quickly show you how you'd set things like that up. If we come over to the settings section, inside settings, we've got 4 different tabs and we can use these for different things. General settings, you can see the backups retained if you're using localhost. The backups retained for each remote storage site, so you can configure this. Like I said, you basically have unlimited. The only limitation is the amount of storage space on your external remote storage. So set up whatever you think is going to be viable for what you need to do. If you're taking a weekly backup, maybe 7 of those, whatever you kind of want to do. The same thing then goes for the database backups as well. So you've got the same for localhost and for remote storage. We've got a range of other options then. You can configure this exactly how you want. Take your time to read through it and see the different options that are there. It's going to be useful to make sure that you configure this to get optimal results. What I'm interested in though is the auto backup before updating section. You can see we can just enable this, so it'll take a copy of only the files that are going to be updated to make sure that we don't make a complete backup of everything to speed up the whole process. Then we can choose whether we want to save that backup to the local host and it'll tell you what the folder it's going to put those in, or we can send that to remote storage. You see rollback folder under the custom directory. So it's up to you which way you want to do this, locally or remotely. Then let's just take a look at this in action. You can see I've got a couple of plugins and some updates that need to be carried out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to jump over to the update section. So we just come in and take a look at what updates we have available. Once you come into there, you can see I've got some plugin updates, I've got some theme updates, all my translations and everything are up to date, and WordPress is up to date as well. Now you can see we've at the top, auto backup before updating. So the same options are listed inside here as well. So I'll leave those as they are. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just choose these plugins to update. So I'm going to say update those plugins. Now you can see what's happening is it's telling us what plugins are going to be updated, and then we're having this backup process underneath telling us the process of how far we are up prior to making those updates. So WPVivid Backup Pro has gone through the process now of making a backup, then it'll update those plugins. If we run back to the WordPress updates and we say we want to do the same thing again for any of these themes, we're going to do update themes. And you'll see it'll do the same thing again. It'll tell us what it's going to update, give us a progress of what's being updated. It's pretty quick because we're doing it locally, so it's not having to create that backup and then offload those to our remote storage. It's doing it all locally, so the process is just going to be a little bit quicker. But this just gives you peace of mind that if something goes wrong, you can reinstate that backup from that incremental sort of backup when you're making changes. And it just means it's just painless, really simple to do. Now, another key area that I think is definitely worth noting, especially if you have a website where you've got multiple users and they could be having different roles, what you can do is you can come into the roles and capabilities and you can say exactly what any of those particular roles can do when it comes to WPVivid Backup Pro. Now, by default, your administrator is going to have access to all of the options. However, you may want to give some options to an editor. You can come into the edit option next to that particular role, and then you can choose what capabilities they have based upon what you want to give them. So you can see we may say that for an author, we want to allow them to create backups or modify plugin settings or anything like that. So you can set that, you can hit save changes, and then that particular user role, when they log in, will have access to those specific functions as part of WPVivid Backup Pro. So again, it's another one of those things that gives granular control that's quite nice, especially when you're working with multiple users on your website. So let's take a quick look now at how I'm using this as part of my business. I use MainWP to manage a range of different sites. Now this is just a sample setup so I can show you how this works. But basically what we have is MainWP is going to manage all of the sites, and I can keep my updates and so on. Well, as part of that, I can link this through to work with WPVivid Backup and the Pro version. The Pro obviously gives me a lot more options. So once I've done that, what I need to do is, if we come out to the extensions, I've already got the WPVivid Backup main all set up inside here. And this will show us all the sites that I've got that plugin installed on and configured. So currently, I've only got this one test site set up. You can see it tells me what version that I'm using, and I currently run the latest version. We're using the general settings, so I've not changed anything else inside here. What I can do now is I can run a backup from here. So I can click on backup now. That will basically open up pretty much a duplicate of what we have as part of the remote setup. Now obviously if I want to, I can use the default settings as part of the plugin that's installed on that remote site, or I can override those by clicking this little switch, and then I can go through the process of managing this completely utterly manually. I've also got the options for your backup and restore, your schedule, your settings, and your remote storage. So I can basically have a semi-duplicate of the key features that I need in that plugin all inside MainWP. This means I can configure everything from one simple interface, manage all my backups, make sure that if anything goes wrong, I can push that backup back out and make sure that the site is back online almost immediately. I also use this alongside a free service. So if we come over and take a look at the overview, you can see that I've got some monitors set up and running, and I currently have 2 set up to show you. And as you can see, it tells me the uptime, whether that site is up right now. So I could use that in conjunction with making these updates if I schedule the updates as well. And then if anything goes wrong, I will receive an email from my monitoring service that'll send that over to me to tell me the site is down, gone offline. I can then quickly come in and I can easily push that backup back out to the site, get it back up online, and then I can make sure that I can go through and find out whatever the problem was. Now, if you've never used MainWP, or you'd like to see a little bit more detail on how you can set this up for yourself, I'll put a link in the description to a fully detailed video on how I've shown you to set this entire thing up. It doesn't include MainWP as the backup option because I don't cover backups in there. But hopefully what you can see with this is it is a case of installing the software on the remote, installing the plugin into where MainWP is, and then just basically linking the two together and configuring things. It's not difficult, it's very, very simple and straightforward. And like I say, you can, if you want to, manage and maintain all the plugin settings inside MainWP itself. So even though this is a sponsored video by WPVivid Backup Pro, as you can see, I actually use this plugin myself. I've purchased a license myself, and I use that to back up my key websites to make sure that if I make changes, updates, roll out anything I want at all, I've got that all covered using both MainWP and WPVivid Backup Pro together in conjunction with each other. So that's WPVivid Backup Pro. Hopefully what you've seen is it makes the whole process of migrating, backing up, restoring backups, all those kinds of good things a lot simpler than you may have thought. The fact that it integrates with MainWP and works into my entire process of backing up my client sites, working with client sites and all those kind of things, just giving me peace of mind, well, that's invaluable. And as I said at the top of the video, I paid for this out of my own pocket. This isn't something that's been gifted to me. As always, all of the applicable links for everything I cover is in the description below. If you use that link to buy the Pro version, it does give a small percentage back to me as it's an affiliate link, but it costs you absolutely no more money whatsoever. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback on this video or anything else I've covered, drop those in the comment section. My name's been Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.